talk about the safeties. Like, what is going on in the NFL right now with all of the safeties being released? And you know, I know I'm going to say this later, but I'm going to say it now. Brad Holmes, super smart for waiting to see what was going to happen. Because right now, you're starting to see exodus from a lot of teams with certain positional groups. And I'm going to get to why. I feel why in a minute, but that's leading for Brad Holmes to have a good free agency. I think that he's going to find some good players for us, quite honestly. I'm a little, I guess not a little, I'm a lot excited as to what he's about to do. So, all right, we got a bunch of people in the chat already today. Well, someone said, man, look at us blowing up Will's chat. I don't know who said that, but yeah, you guys have been going strong for 20 some odd minutes. We got Better the Hunt. We got Tracy, Al Torrey. Who else is in here? Steve K, Poppy and Lily's dad, Lone Wolf, Jared Semmelbauer, Michael Jordan, Curtis Wilson, going big screen, David Fry, Josh Prince, Hatteras House. Hey, haven't seen you in a while. How you doing? And extend Will Harris now. You better not. And mile marker 301. What's happening, everybody? If I missed anybody, it's not by purpose. Let's get it going, man. Let's see what we got. Where's Donkey Kong? I need the Super Bowl or bust. I don't see that yet. Braylon Dennis, there he is. DT Elite Smoke. Love it. Brad needs to get somebody, anybody, right? All right, let me take a puff of this thing. We'll get rolling. Sorry, I don't normally do that stuff. That's about all I smoke. So, all right, let's do this, man. Let's do this. Lions are going to be on the prowl this weekend, and there's some reports that have surfaced. I mean, even as late as last season, and Derek did a really good breakdown of some information that he found. And I read a story online that, you know, was explaining some of the information too about Danielle Hunter. And, you know, are the Lions hunting Hunter? That's have they been hunting Hunter? You know, over the last season, there has been two distinct periods that the Lions were targeting Hunter. And I'm wondering at this point, are they still targeting Hunter? That's the biggest question I have, because I think that there's a big difference between, you know, getting somebody, you know, on the last year of their deal, which I think is highly unlikely for Brad Holmes to do often. But I think that he was looking at it from a perspective of, okay, maybe I can give up, you know, a cheap pick to get Danielle Hunter for the rest of the season. And that would have been at the trade deadline, because there wouldn't have been a ton of money coming over to the Lions. It wouldn't have been a lot. I mean, it still would have been considerable amount, but not anything to be worried about, right? And the Lions, you know, would have had plenty of money to do it. And if they would have given up a lower draft pick, even if it was a third round, last, you know, trade deadline, man, what could have been in that NFC title game if he would have stayed healthy for the rest of the season. So here we are now in 2024, and I think it's kind of changed a little bit, where now you have to give up a considerable amount of money. No draft capital, but a considerable amount of money to bring Danielle Hunter in. So I think that's the biggest difference, is you're giving up a cheap draft pick versus with the opportunity to re-sign, make the push in 23, keep him for 24, try to re-sign him, versus now it's an ass ton of money. I mean, let's just be honest. And I just don't know if the Lions are willing to do that on a defensive end, because if you look at the market and you look how heavy, I mean, look at it like it's a stock market, right? I mean, the market is heavy right now in cornerbacks and safeties, primarily safeties, but there's some corners too, man. And I think that's why this draft, this free agency, is shaping up to be the cornerback position, safety position as well. So Braylon Dennis, get Justin Simmons or Danielle Hunter. I do like Justin Simmons, man. I did make some parallels to some information that similar to Danielle Hunter, right? Very similar of targeting Justin Simmons last season and how there was a strong link there. And especially, the link between Sean Payton and Dan Campbell and how, those links always tend to kind of work out in your favor if you're trying to get a player or you're trying to move a player, trying to get, the inside scoop on a player. Obviously, there's a great relationship there between Dan Campbell and Sean Payton. So let me know in the chat. Can you guys hear, any background noise or fuzziness? Like static almost, because I can at times, and I don't know why. Because everything seems to be dialed in pretty good. And if you can, I'm going to try to fix it. All right, so let me get into the free agents. Demigod's in the house. I see that. What's happening, my man? Can't wait to see how sideways he gets me tonight, because he always does it with something. It's all good though. We love it. What do we got here? Better the Hunt says one big money dog can get what? What's that saying? One big money dog can't get hurt. Look at CJ. I wish that they would move these emoji things out of the way because I can't read it. Let me go to the other chat. It says one big money dog can get hurt. Look at CJ. I'd like to see 3 second tier D-line guys. No static here. All right. So Better the Hunt doesn't want the static. No, I'm just kidding. I get what you're saying. And I'm right in line with you too, man. I like the second tier market. I think that when you have some good, solid, foundational pieces on the team, you can add those really good rotational players that are still young, that maybe haven't broken out of their shell yet. Maybe they haven't been coached right yet or been under the right system. And I mean, they just light off like a firework when you get them in the house. And it's all about the coaching. It's all about the development. It's sometimes it's the environment. This is a very highly intelligent team, very highly intelligent, the way that it's coached, the type of coaches that they bring in, the type of players that they bring in, very, very highly intelligent. And sometimes it's just that style of an environment that makes all the change for some players. I think my mouse just died. For some players to have success, later on in their career. All right, let's get into some safeties. I will jump back into the chat here in just a moment. Demigod 313, let me answer that one first. Do I believe that Cam Sutton falls under second tier? I think so. I said this the other day. I kind of recanted a little bit of my Cam Sutton distaste. He still had a crappy 23. He's terrible. But here's my take on Cam Sutton. I think that he was a product of the Lions not having the right pieces or enough pieces. I think that if we had a pass rush, obviously Cam Sutton's going to be way better just naturally because you have a pass rush, you have a better front end. But even, the other DBs, we just didn't have a good stable of DBs. The Lions were banking on Mosley to play. And in matching those two guys up, that symmetry that they may have together, they may be perfect on the field together. And we didn't see that. So I'm going to give Cam a little bit of a pass, but I still think that based on how I watched Cam play, I don't think that he's a press man guy. I don't at all, anywhere close to being one. And he definitely doesn't have the size to be a press man guy. So for that reason, I think that he is a cornerback 2. I think that he should be on the other side. I don't think that he should be traveling with the number 1s, but I still think that he has the ability to be a very good corner in this league with the right assets around him. I hope that makes sense. Anyway, I hope that makes sense. So I'll come back to the chat in a minute. here's what I want to start with. So free agent safety market exodus is the title of this. I forgot let me plug in my mouse real quick. Man, we're just not getting off to a great start. I don't even have a damn charger. All right, never mind. The supply is in line to really outweigh the demand this season. And what I mean by that is there was a ton of safeties just released. So when I say you think about it like it's a stock market, supply and demand, or any product and supply and demand. What happens when you have a bunch of supply? Price goes down. When you have a little bit of product, price shoots up. I think we're going to see the same thing happen here. It's unlikely, to see this dramatic change in price for the safety position like we did with the running backs. I mean, that just dropped off a cliff. It was a sinking market for the running backs, but 7, personnel executives and coaches around the league have confirmed in some fashion or another that something has been developing with the back end of defenses, namely the safeties. And it may be short-lived, it may be a short trend. But here's one quote from an executive, not to be named. He says, it's part of a larger financial trend. The market got too high for the position's impact overall. And then they went on to say, while the market wasn't nearly as strong in 2023, you saw teams weren't willing to pay. I think that we are going to see a trend of teams not willing to overpay for this position. And I'm going to give you my conspiracy component to this at some point throughout this. But I think that there's something kind of going on here. And I believe that there's a certain weekend that this is where it's utilized, that they figure out what they're going to do that season collectively as owners. You got to remember that, yes, these are each 32 independent franchises, but they are all the NFL. And each one of these owners that owns an NFL team must work together to drive the engine, to print the money that the NFL does. At the end of the day, you've got 33 people running the NFL, 32 owners, plus their affiliate owners, minority owners, whatever, their boards, and Roger Goodell and the NFL's board. So those are the people driving the decisions, right? But digging deeper into this, I think that, a trend seems to be forming, at the safety position. I mean, even with Justin Simmons here being kind of the top tier safety that was just released. And, as a group of safeties have just flooded the market in the free agency period, with teams primarily starting to prioritize other areas of the roster. And so here's a taste of who was just released: Kevin Byard, Jordan Poyer, Jamal Adams, Eddie Jackson, Quandre Diggs, Rayshawn Jenkins, and Marcus May. They were all cut or designated as post-June 1 cuts in May's case. And Antoine Winfield Jr. was franchise tagged by the Bucks, and Kyle Duggar was transition tagged ultimately by the New England Patriots, and Xavier McKinney wasn't tagged in any capacity by the Giants. So as the league has become more pass happy, I feel like there's, I guess, a little to this. The rules have changed a little bit. It's more pass happy because the receivers are protected, and teams are far more inclined to overspend at quarterback, wide receiver, offensive tackle, on the defensive side of the ball, edge rusher, and corner, and even defensive tackle. But it seems like linebacker and safety, not so much, and especially safety right now. So they've had to kind of cut back at, other positions while they're overspending on others. And as a result, I think that, whether it's a running back or an inside linebacker or a safety, and there's always exceptions to this rule, but, as of Thursday morning, $100 million in 2024 cash salary had been shed from the safety position. And it's incredible to me. And that's per Nick Cordy of Over the Cap. That was more than 40 million more than any other position. So here's what I'm going to kind of end with this. And I'm going to give you my little conspiracy theory that's going on with this too, is philosophically what's kind of happening, maybe more similar to what's happened to the linebackers than the running backs. But when you look at both situations, the running backs dropped off the face of a cliff because nobody wanted to overpay for running backs anymore because they only lasted 2 or 3 seasons, if that, always got hurt. I mean, half the starting running backs are hurt by week 5 or 6, it seems like, every season. And within a certain extent, smart defensive coordinators have found ways to kind of scheme up, new ways to make safeties and linebackers interchangeable. Bigger safeties, almost a linebacker. Smaller linebackers, kind of a safety. You've seen it last year with James Houston. They tried to get that dude to run downfield with a tight end, and the guy, breaks up his ankle in parts or whatever he did. So you've got defensive coordinators trying to repurpose players and make them more versatile. And in some of them, like better slot corners have even taken on safety responsibilities, either in the game plan role or, as a full-time basis. So think about this. Brian Branch. Lions brought him in to be a safety, becomes the nickel slot. But he can play safety, and he's really playing a hybrid. He's almost like a mini linebacker out there. Just has, a little bit more speed than most, but it's his thumper style of hitting and tackling in the run game and his coverage ability that, he's kind of doing all three: linebacker, safety, and corner, slot corner. So when you look at Brian Branch and what the Lions just did at that position, I think that's what you're seeing now with the rest of the NFL, is they are trying to find these guys that are tweeners that are more versatile so that they can utilize them in a different way and not have to overpay, for all of these positions. And I find it interesting. And the reason why I'm bringing all this up, and I guess the other point that I will make here is some of what's happened this week may be largely a coincidence, or at least not very indicative of a larger trend with the position. But 8 safeties who were recently released, 7 are on the wrong side of 30. So that part makes sense. Adams is the exception. An extensive injury history, has only played 10 games over the last 2 seasons. But the drafts, they have a few pretty big safeties in it. This draft, 2024, kind of loaded in the safety position to a degree. And there's a few big corners that can be converted to safeties. So what I'm seeing is this exodus from teams shedding these players. They're probably going to draft safeties. And that's where I'm gearing up to kind of end this segment here. Is I think a lot of these teams that are shedding a safety are probably going to draft a safety at some point early, at least within round 3. So where does this leave the Lions? Because so many safeties have been released, the Lions shouldn't feel the need to overpay here. The market is flooded. It's flooded with product right now. And I believe that that's ultimately going to dictate a slash in cost. So like I started out saying, Brad Holmes, super, super intelligent to wait as long as he can to do anything with his free agents, guys that he can sign, and some that have already been cut that you can go sign, the true free agents that are still under contract you can't touch until next week, Wednesday. So super, super smart. I think that we're going to see a significant change in the back end of this defense. The market is insane for safety. You got Xavier McKinney, Kyle Duggar, Justin Simmons, Cameron Curl, Eddie Jackson, Kevin Byard, Julian Blackmon, Geno Stone, Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer, CJ Gardner-Johnson, Quandre Diggs, Jamal Adams, Darnell Savage, Jeremy Chin, Rayshawn Jenkins, Jordan Whitehead, of course, Tracy Walker, and Jordan Fuller. That's almost 20 teams that, that could have a, pretty darn good safety. So let me get into the chat. I know that was a lot of information, but I wanted to give you guys, a good picture of what's happening around the league and how your GM, Brad Holmes, is probably viewing some of these opportunities as that just great opportunities to, pluck some really good players and not have to overpay. All right, let me wind back to chat here. You guys are going crazy tonight. It's awesome. Loud and clear. Got it. Give me Wilkins, Gilmore, Huff. That's my 3. D. Sheldon Browning. Hey, that's a new name. Welcome in tonight. Do us a favor, man. If you haven't subscribed yet, we'd appreciate to have you in. Feel free to subscribe at any point in time. Jared Summelbauer, me too. If you look at the defensive line coach, Tart, Autry, Simmons, I believe, may come now. All of them. David Fry, Wilkins, and Huff puts our D-line over the top. Those are my 2 guys right now. Wilkins and Huff, I'm high on both of them. D. Sheldon Browning, I would trade for Lattimore over Snead because of the money and draft capital to give up. So I'm glad you brought up Snead. So Snead has been linked to the Lions, and the Lions are still not out, on the Snead lottery here. There's still a lot of talk, a lot of rumor. Matter of fact, and even some of the headlines here on the thumbnail, I know I did something different, but I thought I'd do something a little bit different. I clipped a bunch of headlines. I didn't make those. I clipped those, and those are real headlines about the Lions and the talk that's been going on the last couple of days. And Snead is mentioned in there, still that, because CJ Gardner struggled during his lone season with the Lions, that now is a good time, to go find somebody like a Simmons or, bring in Snead and, for the cornerback room. There's just a lot of options here, but I'm kind of walking back a little bit from Snead and thinking that he may not be the perfect option for the Lions anymore, just based on all of these free agents that have just gotten released. This is why we love the NFL. This week is just nuts. It is so fun because everything is so fluid and ever changing. That's why you see 15 different mock drafts come out from one person, because everything changes. Any day, can change everything. Yeah, Tracy, to your point, almost dozen released in the last 12 or last 24 hours here. Any concerns about the Lions not signing Glasgow? I'll get to Glasgow here in a little bit. D. Sheldon Browning says, I saw a podcast giving us cornerback Fuller. I don't want him, my opinion. So Sheldon Browning, there was a video I did the other day. It was live with Adam Aniba. And he's a Washington writer. He's a independent scout. And he said, man, that Fuller is a guy that we want. Somebody that is a Washington Commanders guy. Hates to see Fuller leave, but it is somebody that we should target heavily and somebody that this team can really build around. So go ahead and watch that video if you wouldn't mind. It's in the live section. It says it's, with Adam Aniba. And it's a really good interview. Guy has exceptional knowledge of the game. He's been doing it for 9 years as an independent scout, and someone that I'm definitely going to learn from in my journeys as an independent scout. Braylon Dennis says, I think that we can get Newsome. So I haven't really done a lot of research on Newsome. I don't really know why everyone is so high on Newsome right now, other than what's the cost? What's the cost factor? Can you really save a bunch of money by taking a Newsome versus, anybody else that's available, like an Awuzie? Well, see, my idea is, if you snag an Awuzie and a Fuller, you're set. And
Jameson makes the catch. Touchdown, Detroit Lions. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about, number 9.
What was I saying? So you grab a Woozy and Fuller and you're set. And I know that we have Emmanuel Mosley coming back, but I mean, Mosley is right now is going to be the 4th guy on the depth chart, until he can work himself back to being healthy and actually make the field for more than 2 to 4 snaps. I'm not expecting one thing out of him. I'm not. Right now, he's just a guy that we signed that is kind of just being stashed away. And if it were me, if I were the GM making those calls, that's how I would approach free agency. I wouldn't want another repeat of 2023 where I let a Sterling Thomas leave the team and then Mosley goes out and tears up his other ACL. And you could have had Sterling Thomas helping this defense out. And who knows how he could have been. He already had some great chemistry with the team. Let's see here. Will I be doing any calls soon? Not yet. Just getting started here. We'll open it up in a little bit. Matter of fact, I got to make sure that I even have my cord which I should make sure my phone is charged too. All right. I'll open it up in just a minute. Just give me a little bit, get through some of this information, and then let's talk, we'll talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. So here's my second point tonight. Well, Sports Talk with Rob says Brad Holmes is a kid in the candy store right now. He's got to be. He has to be. I'll be watching all weekend for some moves. Yeah, so Jared Semmelbauer, you must be talking about Newsom, that he's younger and cheaper than Snead. I mean, that's a good point. It's a good point to bring someone in that's a little bit younger. Snead, I mean, I think he still has 4 years left in him at least. And his ability on the field, I think it's unmatched right now. I just think that contract's unmatched. I mean, I pegged Jalen Johnson with a $19 million contract. He got a $19 million contract. I'm hoping that I'm right on, Awuzie and Fuller, that you could bring them both in for less than 15 million combined. And if you could do that, I mean, I just think it's a no-brainer. I really do. But we'll see. We'll see whatever Brad Holmes does, he's going to do. And we're just going to have to support him, along the way. My second point tonight, the Lions have not been as active in retaining their own players from 2023 as you would expect. And I think that Brad Holmes has been patient. I kind of, was going through this in the first part. Been patient and diligent in keeping communication flowing, obviously, with the players, but it's this patience that is going to serve him the best. Like I said, we just witnessed 8 safeties get released, actually more like a dozen get released, and some that are far better than CJ Gardner-Johnson. I know that's a hot button issue. Not everybody likes to hear that. But with the flooding of the market, like I said, and the pay for safeties, that should drop, don't be surprised if this is where my conspiracy comes in. This is not a coordinated effort by the league to drive prices down at positions that have been way overpaid in the last few seasons. Overpaid by their terms, not my terms. I mean, I don't dictate what these guys, get paid, right? The league does, the market does, the agents do, the teams do. But when you utilize a weekend called the NFL Combine, and there's a ton of meetings going on with, coaches and teams in the NFL, there's a lot going on at the Combine, a lot going on behind the scenes. Why is it all of a sudden you come out of the Combine, you're rolling right into free agency, period, and one position is just getting cut from everywhere? And it's a position that has had a huge increase in salary over the last few seasons. Nobody think that that's a coordinated effort? Because look, they did the same dang thing with the running backs. Same dang thing. They drove the prices down, and then they go out and you can just, get whoever you want. You drive the prices down on the running backs, you drive the prices down on the safeties. Now you're spreading out the talent all over the league. You've reset the market, and it'll take 5 to 10 years for that market to rebuild itself again, because these guys are going to get inked to 3-4 year deals. And I feel like their hands are in this a little bit. I think like the NFL and the franchises of the NFL organization have something to do with it. I think it's intentional. I really do. Our guy now, Jalen Reeves-Maybin, by the way, I don't know if you guys saw my video pop out, but your special teams ace is now the president of the NFLPA. So he'll be involved in a lot of these conversations. Donovan Amos, $1.99 donation, says, I'll hop on when you do phone calls. Appreciate it. I'll open it up here in a little while. At the end of the day, look, there's too much talent out there. I think that CJ Gardner-Johnson is probably going to find that we're not going to overpay for his services this year. And I do think that, he's probably going to be testing free agency. I think he ends up back in Denver or Philly, to be honest with you. The Lions already brought back linebacker Jalen Reeves-Maybin, the guy I just mentioned, the new president of the NFLPA. Congratulations to him. That is a huge promotion. Cornerback Emmanuel Mosley was brought back. Tight end Shane Zielstra. They tendered Brock Wright. They brought back running back Zonovan Knight. But it's hard to say who else might return at this point, right? So when will we know what the Lions are going to do with their own in-house guys? And here's my bet. I would be willing to bet that by Monday evening, it's going to be a very active night. And the reason why I say that is I think that Brad Holmes has been holding tight for the rest of the guys on the roster to kind of get through the opening of, the tampering period on Monday, kind of feel what's going to happen in free agency, and then either try to lock down his guys quickly, or he's going to lose some of his guys quickly. So I think that we're going to find out Monday night. I think a lot's going to be going on. Oh my goodness, Jared, you'd like to have Hard Knocks back in Detroit again? I think that was a phenomenal, TV show and everything that they did, but I think it put too much pressure on Dan Campbell and everybody else. I mean, we obviously had a much better season in 2023 than we did in 2022, and I know we are still growing, but some of that stuff, is the product of having all the cameras around. Donovan, I don't know why the sound didn't go off on its own, so let me play you a sound for your donation here.
Oh my God. Detroit, stand up. You've waited for this. One proud nation, stand up. You've waited for this.
I got to get a charger here. Just give me 1 second. All right. Yeah, so talking about CJ Gardner, and I'll get to him in just a minute because right now I'm going to go into my top 5. So I put my top 11 free agents discussed, and it's kind of a breakdown of like the top 5 or 6 that I want to see stay in Detroit, the top 5 or 6 that I'm okay with leaving, like not even a second thought. And I know we've kind of gone over some of this at some points, but now that we're into free agency, we've kind of seen what's going to happen. I think that I have a better hold or handle on what I believe is going to happen with the Lions. And I'm probably going to be wrong, but that's okay. Better the Hunt says, remember Brad's presser where he said for the fans to be patient, bear with him in their decisions. Gives me pause for concern. Maybe a big name or two might not get signed. Yeah, I think that's the whole thing. I think that there's going to be something crazy that happens, and it could be with our own internal guys. I'm more betting that it's something going on internal than it is bringing somebody in external. And that's why I loosely started to float those crazy ideas that Jared Goff for 2 firsts and a third, going back to the Rams or somewhere else to a quarterback needy team that would, love to pay for Jared Goff services. And no, I don't want Jared Goff, to go anywhere. But when you think of things like that, when your GM is saying to be patient and it's going to be a crazy free agency period, it makes you wonder, makes you think a little bit outside the box, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Michael Jordan says, yeah, CJ hasn't earned 100% playing time. Brian Branch is a rookie, outplayed him. Brian did outplay him, but you know what I didn't appreciate is in the NFC title game when I felt that Brian was playing great. Next thing you know, here comes CJ Gardner playing 3/4 of the snaps, and Brian Branch didn't. He hardly played, and that was in the second half. Made 0 sense to me, 0. So I think that was a personnel problem. I really do. I think that Aaron Glenn just made a boneheaded decision in that situation, quite honestly. All right, so let me get to my first one. I think that this is a big time no-brainer. This guy really needs to come back. The Lions need to figure it out. There's nothing more important than this offensive line. Right now, you've got what you call your 3 bookends. You from your center to your left and your center to your right, you're good. It's just between the tackles in the center, you've got nothing. We have nobody and no backups. It is a very big hole on this team. You have to bring back Graham Glasgow. It's a must. So, in my opinion, Glasgow has made it known that he thinks that he deserves a raise, and he does. He played for what, $2.5 or $3 million last season. He had a very productive year, and offered positional versatility as a guard who could kick inside, or to the center position, even though it's his less desired position. He did well at all three: left guard, center, and right guard. He actually had better grades at left guard than Jonah Jackson did. And at center, I think he had one bad snap. That was it. And I think he was there for about 150 snaps. All signs point to a new deal for Glasgow right now. I think that they're going to be able to get it done. He already left the Lions once before, asking his agent to gauge Detroit's interest in a reunion last offseason, and it got done. That was probably Brad Holmes' best offseason signing in my position, was bringing Glasgow back. He's comfortable in Detroit, and he's super comfortable, playing with the guys that he knows on this offensive line. So that's my first one, is let's get Glasgow back in the house. I think that opens up some more opportunities for the Lions to find some fits on the offensive line. But I also believe in this situation that if you solidify 4 positions on the offensive line, I'll just go ahead and go to one of my, picks that I feel can go ahead and walk, and that's Jonah Jackson. Now, when I said a minute ago that there's nothing more important than the offensive line, I truly mean that. But at the same time, Jonah didn't have the greatest of grades, and he had way too many injuries, nagging injuries that were causing a lot of problems for this offensive line throughout the season. And dare I say that even pissed off Dan Campbell at one point, because you could hear in Dan's voice that he was a little bit upset that it was up to Jonah when he was going to tell him he was ready to play at a press conference. And as the Lions start to balance, the present with the future and what they're going to need to do with re-signing Penei Sewell, they'll need to decide if Jackson is really a part of this core foundation moving forward. And if he is, then you've got Penei and Jonah as the new core, right? When Ragnow and Taylor Decker hang it up, those are the 2 guys you have left. And obviously Glasgow would probably be done at the same time as Decker and Ragnow. So if those are your 2 guys that you're going to move forward with, then it makes sense to bring him back. But at this point, I think that they would way overpay for Jonah's services. I think that, the market for a guard is pretty good. Robert Hunt has been one of my favorite targets for left guard, and we'll see if it happens. But there's a few other ones available. I think that, he's been a good piece on a very good unit, but he's also missed a lot of time with his injuries. Jackson's 26 years old. He's young enough to fit, into Detroit's timeline to be, part of the young core moving forward. So a deal is certainly, feasible, right? And manageable. But this is where I don't see it working. With 3 day 2 picks in this upcoming draft, I think that the Lions are probably going to use one to invest on their future left guard, and potentially their future right guard. So I think that this is the time you do it. You've got to solidify the trenches, earlier as opposed to later. There's always going to be some decent free agency, value somewhere. But I think that this is the draft that you do it, because there's plenty of opportunity where the Lions are going to be picking. It's time for Jonah Jackson to move on. I think that he's going to command more than $12 million a year, and that's just too much. Especially when you can probably bring in Graham Glasgow for 2 seasons on $12 million. And quite honestly, it's probably 2 seasons for $10 million. And I would rather see that happen with Graham Glasgow. Get him locked up. Ryan Van Valkenburg says, yes, release Jonah if he wants too much. Well, let me ask you this. If it's not just about the money, right? How do you feel Jonah played? Do you guys believe that Jonah is good enough to, money aside, do you think that he played good enough? I mean, because I'll tell you that up against some of the best competition that he faced, he didn't play that well. If he didn't have Ragnow and Taylor Decker on both sides of him, he was getting eaten alive. And I think it was because of the headsy play by Decker and Ragnow, squeezing the pocket and in limiting what Jonah Jackson had to deal with, that Jonah had, a little bit more success. Had he been on any other offensive line where he doesn't have that type of offensive line to work with, I think that he would have been a huge liability. But that's just what the tape tells me, in watching the games and then going back and watching some of the highlights. He played phenomenal in some games. I think that he's a better run blocker than he'll ever be a pass blocker. And in a league where, you're passing a ton, Jared Goff can't be on the ground. And I just didn't like what, Jonah was putting on tape there. Yeah, I'm right with you there, Better the Hunt. I feel the same way. Peter Van Laarhoven says we don't need a safety at all. Well, we actually kind of do. Whether it is somebody in free agency or the draft, the Lions will have to bring in 2 safeties, because right now we only have 3, and they like to carry 5 on the 53-man roster. And with CJ Gardner being a free agent and nobody behind CJ Gardner, the Lions are looking for 2 safeties to bring in. And maybe this year they only roll with 4. But there's one thing you definitely can never have enough of, and that's DBs. A lot of teams go through their DB roster like water, and they're left holding the bag midway through the season, scrambling for free agents sitting on the couch. So my next, it's top 5 guys that I want to see re-signed. And this one has 2 people in it. So to answer your statement there, Sports Talk with Rob, I think that Jonah is going to get overpaid just because of the market. I mean, there's a few guards out there. Robert Hunt is probably one of the better ones on the market, but there's a few guards out there, and I don't think that there's enough guards to really command, a lower price point. I think someone's going to overpay just because he's coming from a top 3 offensive line, if not, a top 2 offensive line. I think that kind of amplifies, his value a little bit, even though it's a surface value and it's not really the value of the player. All right, let's move on. Josh Reynolds, Donovan Peoples-Jones. So I got both of these guys as my 2 and 3 here. Now, I know some of you guys are real hard up on Josh Reynolds because of what happened in the NFC title game, but I will tell you that there was more than just his 2 drops. And, you've got to include Jahmyr's fumble and, some missed tackles and some other big plays on defense. Kendall Vildor's amazing catch to Brandon Ayuk for 50 some odd yards down at the goal line. There was a lot of things that went on in that second half that you wish you could have back. And Josh Reynolds has been pretty clutch, pretty consistent throughout his tenure with the Detroit Lions. And for that reason, I don't know if I'm willing to walk away from his chemistry. But here's what I wrote. As much as I think that the Lions will trade and target, as much as I think the Lions will target a wide receiver in the draft, I still feel that there is a benefit to keeping both guys around and still adding a wide receiver on day 2. Reynolds has been a steady contributor, over the many seasons that he's been playing with Jared Goff, and especially the last, couple of seasons with the Lions. The coaching staff loves this dude. I mean, he's a locker room guy through and through. He's kind of the older mentor of the group in the wide receiver room. He's been, like I said, a steady contributor over the years. The Lions, now let me wind that back here. Holmes has really been trying to find an X receiver, and he really needs to find an X receiver to fit into this offense. For that reason, Reynolds really hasn't developed into the X receiver I think that Brad Holmes is looking for. Peoples-Jones was then acquired at the deadline for a 2025 6th round pick. And I just don't see Holmes walking away from DPJ and that 6th round pick that he invested, as long as DPJ is willing to play for a reasonable deal that is, kind of backloaded with incentive. If I had to choose one, Reynolds has the most chemistry with Goff, but DPJ offers youth and an unrefined talent that just needs what I believe an offseason with Jared Goff and Ben Johnson and, with Dan Campbell and learning what it's like to be a Lion and how to get, how to understand this offense and play in this offense and with these guys. And I think DPJ is going to come out the other side flying. I really do. So for that reason, I think the DPJ would be the guy that I keep. I'm not opposed to both. Reynolds, his value is closer to $7 million per year. If the Lions can, sway him to get down to 5, I think that there's reason right there to keep him. I think that he's too valuable at $5 million. Now, DPJ's value is closer to $3 million per season, and I'm just good with that number. Like, I'm cool with $3 million. I mean, if the Lions can talk him down to $2.5 million, great. But I think $3 million is a good price to pay for a guy that could be a breakout player with the right offseason. A season before last, what do you have? Like 60 catches and 800 and some odd yards for the Browns. The last season he was with the Browns, the reason why he wasn't getting a lot of balls is because they were running the ball. Deshaun Watson was hurt and they were just running the ball. They didn't have anybody to throw the ball. So I think that's the main reason why you've seen DPJ, not do anything. One, it's very difficult to come to Detroit and play. And what I mean by that is you'll notice the free agents that we bring in mid-season hardly play or hardly have any production. And that's because Jared Goff's system, Ben Johnson's system, requires timing. You saw with Jameson Williams, he missed too much time. He missed an offseason. He missed training camp. And then he comes back and then he gets suspended for 6 games. He missed too much time. And it's the time on task that finally started to pay off for Jameson Williams the last 6 games of the season. Same will be applied to DPJ. I think that, you give him some more time in this system, he's going to be just fine. And he's got way too much talent, too young to let walk right now. So let's see how you guys agree with that or disagree. Reynolds has made great catches during the year and in the Rams game. I would bring him back. See, I'm not going to penalize him for those 2 drops. I'm not. I feel like there's other games that he's helped us win. And who knows if we would even made it that far, had he not made the catches that he did, throughout the season. Peter Van Laarhoven, Sorsdal will be our swing tackle this year. So you think that they're going to take him out of the guard position and put him into tackle this year? That's interesting. Sorsdal played terribly last year at guard, and maybe that's because he's used to playing right tackle. But I think that Sorsdal needs to make a big jump, and I hope he does. Matter of fact, I'd have to go look at Sorsdal's arms. Does he have arms over 33? Because I think the measurables are going to be a big reason as to if he can even play tackle at this level. Jared Semmelbauer says Onwenu is a native, if that counts. If not, Risner and Glasgow are buddies from the Bronco days. I believe he talked to the Lions last year in free agency, but went with money and tied to the coach. I don't know much about Risner. Onwenu is an interesting prospect. I'm still high on Robert Hunt, though. He's my number 1 guy right now. Poppy and Lily's dad says, I'd keep Josh, but I'd still draft AD Mitchell at 29 if we can't trade back. So you wouldn't take defense at 29, you'd go offense. Michael Jordan, DPJ hasn't really done anything in the NFL. He is a bust in my mind. I think he started to have a great season, his 3rd season in the NFL. Great season. You got to remember, he's on the Browns, man. I mean, terrible team. Complete mess. They don't have any chemistry to speak of over there. He should have been a bright spot, for the Browns, but they just can't seem to get it together. They're the cousin of the Lions, but I think that we're finally starting to break out of that mold. Let's see. DPJ for a vet minimum deal. Yeah, I think his value is a little bit more than that, but I'd we'll see what happens. John Goodwin says, I'm not for keeping Jones. His stats will mirror last year's stats. Plus, Tracy says, plus he's another deep threat. Let's see. Jared Sommerauer, wide receiver, Ridley or G. Davis. Yeah, so I think Ridley's going to cost a little bit too much. Reynolds is not worth the money. At $5 million, he's not worth the money. 600 plus yards, 60 balls a year. One of the best at 20 plus yards through the air. I don't know. Stats do matter for some things. Great Lakes State guy from Michigan says, can't pay Higgins if we're re-signing Brown. Higgins. Who are we talking about here? Who's Higgins? Talk about T. Higgins? Isn't he franchise tagged? Ryan Van Valkenburg. Reynolds had like 3 drops all regular season. Solid guy. Yep. I think he had 4 actually, but yeah. I mean, it's not bad at all. Jones route running is off. Too many drops. He just looks off. I don't know how many drops he had last year. I don't think he had but 1. And as far as route running goes, that's what I'm talking about. He came into a system, and it is a system that is highly predicated on timing. So you give him an off season, it's going to be totally different because they've got to go through that whole training camp. I mean, everything from now through September is building the chemistry and getting your timing down. Jared is probably somewhere throwing with St. Brown and Jameson Williams right now. And they're working on their craft. They're working on, building the chemistry and running the route tree and developing plays just like they did last year. And that's why Jared Goff texted Ben Johnson and said, huge year for St. Brown. And St. Brown had a huge year because he could see that the chemistry was there. And, he did what he did. Peter Van Larhoven says, I still don't understand why we let Arizona pooch our UDFA linebacker. You talk about Nowoski when we knew the team wanted him just to activate Cabinda. Bad roster management. Dude, I can't agree more with that statement because you're right. They knew. They even activated Nowoski just because of that simple fact. And I've always said it year in and year out that Cabinda is a wasted space on any team. Not him, the person, him, the position. That position is worthless to me. And I get it. He's another special teamer. But wouldn't you rather have a linebacker, a 7th linebacker, a 12th cornerback, a 7th or 8th wide receiver, 5th tight end, play in that position that you probably don't need to worry about? You don't need a fullback on this team. Never really use them. Hardly ever do you see 2 running backs or a running back and a fullback, in the same lineup ever in this offense. I mean, I dare say less than 0.5% of last season did you see, a fullback and a running back, even though I wanted to see JAHMYR GIBBS and Montgomery in more often together. We didn't see it enough. Man, I was dreaming up so many plays in the offseason. Yeah. That one burns me still, man. And I didn't know enough about Nowoski, but the way I feel about it is if you really think that highly of the guy, why did you let him go? Let's see here. Offense wins championships. Fersker or Rodrigo will be our fullback. There you go. See, that's the point. I think Ferksker's going to be gone. I think that I don't think that he's going to make it through free agency. All right, let me get through a couple more of these so I can get the phones open here. Get my phone charged. All right, so the next one up is, so I'll go to one that I feel like we should let go. And I've already mentioned his name once. and that's CJ Gardner-Johnson. So the Lions are not in a huge deficit at safety with 3 quality guys right now, younger guys in Kirby, Iffy, and Branch. I would still like to see the Lions go out and get a top-tier veteran to round out this group. The thing is, if you're a team in need of a safety, this is a dream scenario for all the teams right now in the NFL with all the safeties that were just released. So setting this one up for a talented class and low cap potential, I think that the Lions are going to find somebody else that's a little bit younger, maybe a little bit bigger, more reliable. I mean, CJ Gardner is really on the smaller end. When I see safety, I want to see 6'2", 195 pounds, bigger guy, rangier guy, Justin Simmons size. That's what I think of when I think of a safety. This draft has, a few guys that, are that big, probably like 6 or 7 they're pretty big guys. It's not that I don't like CJ Gardner. I just feel like the experiment failed. It's time to move on. Let's find somebody that can stick around for, potentially 4 seasons and really build the back end of that defense. You build it with these 2 young guys, and I think it will be just fine. Peter Van Larhoven. Hey, Will, does Will Harris have pictures on someone? The guy is cheeks, yet we keep this his pathetic play around. All right, so let me move on to my last guy. The last guy that I would want to see, and I don't mean this by I don't want to ever see him go, just the last guy on my list for the guys that need to go, and that's Will Harris. Look, I don't need to spend any time here at all. I mean, Peter Larhoven has said it best. This guy is hot trash. He is the butt of a lot of jokes from fans. He's not well liked by the media because of his play on the field. And it just hasn't put the game together on the field. If Brad Holmes re-signs Harris, I think that the fans will probably lose it. I know I would. As a fan, I would. As someone that has to accept it and report it and move on, I would hope that he doesn't make it out of camp. And what I mean by that is I hope someone beats him. I hope someone, puts the screws to him in camp and shows Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell why it was a bad idea to bring him back. So same deal as another guy that we'll talk about here in a minute too. But yeah, I'm with you, man. I feel that it's time for the Will Harris experiment to end. I'll come back to that in a minute. So one of the guys that I feel should stick around is James Houston. Now, I don't think this is any surprise. The Lions don't know what they have yet. And someone that was so promising in year 1 needs a second shot to show us what he's got. At least on a cheap deal. Low-end guarantee. Get him through free agency and the draft to see kind of what options there are and then sign him up. I don't think that he's going to have, a ton of options anyway. The Lions do hold, I believe, an exclusive rights, on him. I should probably double check that. I think they hold exclusive rights on James Houston. Give me 1 second. Let me just double check. Exclusive rights free agents is James Houston. So they're going to have to tender him at some point. And they haven't made the decision yet on Craig Reynolds, Coyote, Abel Sika, James Houston, and Khalil Dorsey. But I think that James Houston will get tendered. I really do. They're probably just trying to decide what type of tender should it be. Are we going to way overpay this dude and put a 3rd or a 2nd round tender on this guy or what? Yeah. But he's got to stick around, man. I think that, once he's healthy and playing the role that he's supposed to play, which is a primary pass rusher on 3rd downs, maybe he gets in on other plays. But I don't want to see this guy out in coverage. I don't. I want to see him rush in the passer. So I hope that he sticks around. So my last guy on the positive side of the ball here to stick around is the Lion, Benito Jones. Now, I know that not a whole lot of people are excited about Benito Jones, but look, we need some depth. And not only do we need depth, but we need guys on this team that are familiar with this defense and familiar with the players and, familiar with the systems and just know how Dan Campbell does his thing. And Benito is not terrible. Now, I don't want him to be the primary starter, but at the very least, I think that Jones will provide an emergency option that knows this defense well and has some chemistry with McNeil and Martin to give this, this team some solid backup options. So he's the last guy on my list right now. That is my top 5 or 6. As I had 2 guys listed with Reynolds and DPJ. Something just changed with my mic. All right, there we go. So anyway, that's my top 5 or 6. Now, one of the last guys that needs to go, actually got the 2 last guys. Vaitai, I'm not going to spend any time on this one. This is no surprise. Injury history, age, and availability are huge. And he just doesn't have, he's not on the good side of any of that. So it's time for Vaitai to go. And then, of course, Charles Harris. Harris's NFL career has been a very long, arduous path to nothing. A former first-round pick, Harris lasted just 3 seasons with Miami Dolphins, the team who drafted him and only sacked the quarterback 3.5 times. After an underwhelming season with the Falcons, the Lions took a chance on him and gave him a prove-it deal in 2021. And he more than proved it. And Brad Holmes fell for it. And in 14 starts, Harris tallied 7.5 sacks, 65 tackles. He finished the season 6th on ESPN's run, stop, win rate. And from week 10 and beyond, he produced the 6th most pressures in the NFL. And then we were left with a big deal and no production with Will Harris. Aaron Glenn was quoted this as saying, looking forward to him getting back to his 2021 form. And I expect him to do that. I expect him to do that. And he's expected to do that himself. Look, Harris never did, and I don't see him being a productive member of this team. Cheap 1-year vet deal, sure, but we need depth. So if he comes back, it's got to be on a cheap, no guarantee, and that's about it. See you later, Harris Brothers. Shout out to Better the Hunt for the $20 donation. Let's see what he has to say here. He says, let's tell all of our Lions fans about this channel. Will really does his homework and deserves to get blown up with followers. Thanks for another great show, Will. I love the passion in the chat. Yeah, no, the passion is all about you guys, and super appreciate you.
Goff takes the snap, gives to Gibbs. Gibbs bounces through a hole. There it goes outside 20. Gibbs, 15. Gibbs, 10. Angling to the end zone. Touchdown, Detroit Lions. Oh, baby, what a run.
Like I was saying, I super appreciate you, Better the Hunt, and everybody that's part of the Rocked On Podcast Network family. You guys are the best subscribers and sponsors to this channel, and you always have been. And if you guys like to get out in the woods, do yourself a favor and check out c3mitts.com. That's c3mitts.com, and check out their mitts, man. They're made specifically for your firearm or your bow or your crossbow, so it prevents you from getting cold hands while you're out in the woods. Don't let your hunt end early. Stay out in the woods. Bag that trophy buck with c3mitts.com. Check them out today. All right, so I'm going to move on to get the phone plugged in here. Let's take some phone calls, and let's talk free agency. I want to know what's on your mind and what you guys feel about the free agency period that's going to kick off next week, Monday. And don't forget, on Monday, we are going to have a Monday show for the Rise and Grind morning show. And I know it's not normally on Mondays, but I have a procedure on Tuesday, so I will not be around. And make sure you guys check out at Rocked On Syndicate, because April 1st, that show is going to be on at Rocked On Syndicate all by itself. All right, I think we're good to go here. So the phone number to call is 313-312-0348. Again, that's 313-312-0348. I'll put it in the chat. And if you guys want to talk some football, talk some Detroit Lions, that is fine by me. Anything else, unfortunately not. So there you go. We'll be waiting for our first phone caller. And when they do call, You will see me talking to nobody. I will go off air for just a moment, welcome them in, and then we'll bring them into the show. All right, so let me get to some of my top free agents. Well, that was quick. We already got a caller. Hold on one second.
What's up, man?
Hey, this is Will with Rocktown Detroit Lions. How you doing? Who do I got on the line?
Donovan.
Donovan, Amos, what's happening, man? How you doing tonight?
It's good. You on air right now?
Yeah, we're on air. We're live. You're with us.
Yeah, do you think Brad Holmes goes after Daniil Hunter after they tried to trade for him, and with them trying to get Snead and all these the big free agents, you think they go after him?
So, Derek did a really nice piece the other day on Daniil Hunter and compared, last season, how there was a lot of traction with Daniil Hunter and the Lions trying to trade for him. And what I said in the very beginning of tonight's show was, I think that when you trade a low draft pick to get somebody for the rest of the season where you don't have a huge contract after the fact, would have been a great option. But now you're looking at a massive contract. I think that I've been on record primarily saying that I think that the Lions are going to go after a cornerback and go after some second tier defensive ends, defensive tackle. I think that they would go after a top tier guy. So I guess my immediate answer would be no. But I'm not opposed to it. I think that Daniil Hunter would be a game wrecker in Detroit.
Yeah. Who knows what they gonna do? 10-20 men put Daniil Hunter on the top 10 free agent list. I know he's throwing out a lot of smoke screens right now.
Yep.
But they could address everything in free agency and then go get a tight end or a safety in the draft.
Yeah, I would love to see him get another tight end. Yep.
Brad Holmes draft for talent, not need, so they could do that.
Yeah, I agree with you 1,000% there. He is a BPA guy all day, best player available. He just wants football players. If he'll find a way to put him on the field. Doesn't matter what position they play.
Yeah, they just had us trading for a guy named Greg Newsom. I never even heard of him. So who truly knows what he's going to do? That's why I damn near stopped making mock drafts, because it depends on what they do in free agency.
Yeah, I was.
They might.
I was 2 seconds away from putting out my first mock draft. I mean, I put one out a while back with everybody live, and I still have another one to do, but I've just been rattling my brain, and it'll come out tonight after the show. It'll drop. I'm going to put the mock draft in the community post, and then it'll, of course, be on the social medias. But yeah, it's tough. This year is tough because this draft is tough.
Yeah, it's a lot of good players, and a lot of these deals are unattractive because you got to give up draft capital to get Snead. I heard they trying to give up a third round pick to get Greg Newsom. So,
I haven't seen that one. I haven't seen that one yet. So who's your number one free agent target right now? If it wasn't Daniil Hunter, who would it be? Who do you really want to see play on this team outside of Daniil Hunter?
I think Snead makes the most sense, because if you're gonna give up a third round pick for Greg Newsom, you might as well go get Snead, somebody who's proven. You might as well go get him.
Well, and you say third round for Newsom. I've heard second round is going to get Snead, a second and a fifth. You're giving up 2 picks, maybe 1 second this year and a fifth next year or a fourth next year. And if you can get Snead for that, I mean, yeah, you might as well. You might as well get it done.
It looks like the Kansas City Chiefs, they gonna give him to the team with the most draft capital, who gives the most draft capital, because we in a bidding war with like 600 other teams. So yeah, if I'm Brad Holmes, I wouldn't get in the bidding war trying to get Snead. If you can't get him, you can't get him.
Well, I think the one team that has a big shot, and this is a video that'll be out tomorrow, is the San Francisco 49ers. I won't give away too much of what's in the video, but I got to tell you, I am sick and tired of the 49ers getting like 4 or 5 was it four, compensatory picks every single season or more. And there's a cap of 4, compensatory picks in the league, but you can also get additional picks because of your coaching tree, the minority coaching tree rule that was implemented a few seasons ago. So now, second season in a row, the 49ers have just as many compensatory picks as they do regular picks. So that's a team that's going to be able to do a lot this season, and that's why their team is so good right now, because they've had so many draft picks.
Yeah, I'm big on keeping our picks in the top 100. I think we should trade back and get more picks. So
yeah,
I don't know, any deal with trading is extremely unattractive to me.
So I'll give everybody a little tidbit, and then I appreciate you calling tonight, Donovan. We got some other callers that are trying to get into, so don't be afraid to call every time we're on, man. I appreciate it every time.
Yep.
All right, brother.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Sorry.
No, go ahead. Oh, I think.
Oh, yeah. Hello?
Yeah, go for it, man.
Yeah, I was thinking, I think CJ and Josh Reynolds going to hit the free agent market.
Okay. CJ and Josh.
It's not making a lot of sense to bring back Josh Reynolds right now. And I think, we ain't expect them to trade Hawkinson. So they might hit the free agent market. And CJ, I feel like CJ, he talks so much to the point where he don't focus on his plays. Like, he put a lot of energy into talking, but not his plays. So I think they both hit the free agent market.
Interesting, man. Interesting. Well, I agree with the CJ one. I still am kind of hard up on keeping Josh Reynolds around. We'll see.
Because if you can draft a guy for cheaper, it's not making a lot of sense. Because if you can draft a guy for cheaper, better play, you feel me? I think that's the route they're gonna go.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a great wide receiver that's going to be sitting there at 73, and his name is Brendan Rice, and I think Xavier Legette. If you're going to want an Xavier Legette, you're going to have to get him at 29. So here's my tidbit. Before you go, here's my tidbit for my mock draft. The Lions need to trade back off of 29. It is going to piss everybody off at the draft, but they need to stay within the top 37. If they stay within the top 37 and add a pick between 37 and 61, they will have an amazing draft. I called the move back from last year to 12, and look what they did. They grabbed 4 impact players last season in 2023, and I think that they could grab 3 impact players in 2024 that is not an offensive lineman. So I think that the sky's the limit if we move back and stay within the top 37.
I would trade pick 29 for a second and third round pick.
Yep.
That's what I was doing for it. But all right, man.
1,000%. All right, Donovan, take care.
You too.
All right, so we had a few calls come in that we missed, and I don't know if you guys are listening or not, but when we have a caller on, I'm only doing one call at a time because I don't have the same calling system that Derek has. I haven't taken the time to set it up. So if you guys want to call in, it is open again. The number is 313-312-0348. Yeah, Xavier Legette, man. Brian Walsh says Legette is a beast. He is. I mean, he kind of gives me those glimpses of Calvin Johnson, type of ability on the field. And I think that he's going to be a rare athlete. I said it the other night with Adam Aniba that I felt that Xavier Legette is going to shock the world with whatever team he joins. Hey, this is Rock Down Podcast Network. You are on the line. Who do I got on the phone?
Yo, what up? This is Sports Talk with Rob.
Hey, Rob, how you doing? We got a little bit of background noise there.
Yeah, I got you. I turned it down. My bad.
That's all good. Thanks, man. Thanks for calling. Appreciate you. What's happening tonight? It's been a minute. How you been?
I've been good, man. Just been working and stuff, man, on the grind. I do food content too, so I've been busy with that. But yeah, man, I still been watching though from afar. So
appreciate it.
But I have to. It's a lot. I know I probably can't say a lot, but there's some things I want to address.
Go for it.
And first thing I want to address, man, you know, and I've been seeing all over YouTube when it comes to the Detroit Lions, man. And the main thing I keep seeing that is we need a cornerback, we need a defensive back. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't get the defensive back. I don't think we should go out our way or trying to pay big money to get a cornerback. And I'm about to sound like Derek right now, because I 100% agree with him when he say this. We need to focus on the pass rush.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care who you try to bring a cornerback. If I don't care how big the name is. If you don't have a pass rush, it won't even matter. We're going to have the same conversation again this season coming up, because your defensive back is only as good as your pass rush. You think I'm lying? Look at a guy like Cam Sutton. One of the reasons why he got paid because his production, how he played in Pittsburgh. The reason why he was able to play like that in Pittsburgh because he had guys that could get to the quarterback, and took pressure off of him. So you think about this season, right? When it comes to our defensive back, they didn't play the best. I'm not going to be the one that they play terrible, because I ain't going to lie. There's been some games where I've seen where I was like, okay, they made stops when we need it. You can look at the game where we clinched the NFC North. Look at the first playoff game. They made a key stop to stop Puka. So we got the talent there. But I feel like a lot of times our pass rush put our defensive back in tough situations where they're not putting pressure on the quarterback, giving quarterbacks time, to make plays. There's so much time a defensive back to hold their receiver. So I think the main focus should be the pass rush. You want to get a cornerback? Go get a cornerback. Get one in the draft. Hey, just want to get somebody in free agency. I'm not spending big money on defensive back. So I get a pass rush. That stuff matters. So.
All right. So let me comment on this one real quick, because this is a great conversation starter. So I hear you on getting the pass rush, and I too believe that we need a pass rush. So I'm going to ask you a few questions here. One, when you say getting pressure on the quarterback, you just mean getting pressure, right? Not necessarily sacks, like.
No. Oh, you know what? You're right. You know what? Thanks for correcting me. Because you know what? It's been times we put pressure, but we didn't execute.
Right.
You know what? I need not just pressure, but I need sacks.
Okay.
It's been too many times. I've seen this. I mean, look at the NFC Championship game.
Mm-hmm.
It's been times that our defensive line was there. But Purdy snuck away some type of little.
It was mystical, man. I don't know how he moved out of the pocket, honestly. Patrick Mahomes does the same thing.
Same thing. And Purdy is nowhere close to Patrick Mahomes.
No.
Right?
No. So the reason why I was asking you about the sacks versus pressure is because, we have the number one guy in the league with pressures. Name's Aiden Hutchinson. He just can't execute. He can't get home. So he's able to get to the quarterback according to the pressure stats, which, I mean, I could talk to you all day about the pressure stats and how all a pressure really means is that you're moving the tackle or the guard into the pocket. That's it, which is 1 yard. That's what a pressure is. That's one of the ways a pressure is counted. So I think that when you look at pressures and production, they're a little bit different, which you understand that. Aiden Hutchinson's getting all this glory as being a great pass rusher, but all he is a great pressure rusher. That's it. He's not a pass rusher. He's a great pressure rusher. He creates pressure by a statistical meaning only. He's not able to execute. He loses a lot of the one-on-ones. I do believe that we need a pass rush, but I do also believe that if you get two guys, because we are so bleak at defensive end right now, and on defensive line, we have so many holes that you could go out and get one dominant defensive end, but if you don't have a complementary defensive tackle, then it's not going to matter. And if you don't have backups, and you don't have depth, well, they're just going to burn you as soon as you've got to rotate guys. So I think that if you get some second tier guys on the right side of the defensive line and get a better defensive tackle, which the defensive tackle has always been the way to the quarterback, that'll fix itself.
Yeah.
But I don't think you need top tier guys to do that. I just think you need good complementary guys that can take some of the pressure, true pressure off of Aiden Hutchinson. Our cornerbacks are terrible, man. And when you look at Sutton and what they did with Pittsburgh had the 22nd ranked defense from the pass rush in 2022. So it's not like they were incredible. You know, they were good, but they weren't incredible to where it was really affecting Cam Sutton's play. I think that the Lions scored better than that this season in the pass rush. So I don't know, man, but go ahead. Keep going on with your points, man.
No, he make excellent points, but but I would say this with Hutchinson, the reason why he couldn't get to a quarterback a lot of times, he's getting double teamed a lot. And just imagine if we had 2 or 3 other guys that, could do what he do, consistent on a consistent level. So, but you made an excellent point there. Also, now Will, I was kind of disappointing you just a few minutes ago.
Uh-oh.
I'm gonna tell you why.
Uh-oh.
I'm disappointed that you off the CJ Gardner a bandwagon now. To me, I remember early in the season, me and you was right there, man, eye to eye. It's like, oh, this is my guy.
It's a business decision now.
We gotta keep CJ.
Yeah.
We gotta keep CJ.
Yeah.
He brings so much besides this football. I get it. A lot of people don't. I think people not used to the trash talking, especially poking the bear with Debo. Not having his best NFC Championship game. But look, man, the guy. I feel like, man, you still bring this guy. All right. I think I think we can afford him. I think he's not gonna. I don't know how much he expecting to get paid, but I don't think he's gonna get paid that much. But I think him. I feel like if we could get Mosley a second chance, you got to give CJ a second chance. He was injured most of the season. The thing
on CJ though, the change on CJ is primarily because it's a business decision at this point. There is a dozen really, really good safeties. Then there's probably 5 top tier safeties available right now that you could get for the kind of money that CJ is looking to get. And I would rather have a prototypical size guy that is younger than CJ and it's better than CJ. Okay. CJ is not a top 10 safety in the league. And there's a couple available right now that you could probably get for CJ money. That's why. That's the only reason why I'm moving off of CJ. The market is dictating change. That's how I look at it.
So you think you should bring in a guy like Simmons?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. 1,000%. And I know he's a little bit older. So Simmons is a guy that's, on the older side of the spectrum that I think that he would be a 1-year guy, just like CJ, a decent contract, but you bring him in for a year to go try to win the darn thing, or they'll find somebody else. I can't remember all the guys. I just put that list away. Let me pull it up. Or they'll bring in, another guy that is a little bit younger that, will give you more longevity. Somebody that you could give a 4-year deal to that you could keep around. I think a Quandre Diggs, a Simmons, they're 1-year guys that are looking to come and get a ring. And that's about it. And the Lions are contenders. If you want to do anything outside of that, I think that, I don't know. I don't remember Xavier McKinney's age. Is he 27 maybe? He could be somebody that you could give a longer deal to.
I think that's a good point, but I still think, look, only because he was injured most of the season, I would still like to see him come back, and see he can play a full season. And like I said, man, I feel like guys in that locker room, he brings something to defense where he give that pump. I think guys really want to play with him. You know what I'm saying? Honestly, it's another reason why I think he might come back, because I think, his history with Dan and Glenn. You know what I'm saying? So I think they want to see what it looked like, having him a full season as well. So,
Yeah, I mean,
But I
there
would
is
say
something.
this.
There is something to chemistry. You know, that's my issue with Josh Reynolds is the chemistry. Like, there's too much chemistry there. As long as it's a fairly friendly deal, I don't think that you could give up on somebody like that. And you still go out and find somebody in the draft, and you still go out maybe and find somebody in free agency if it's not DPJ. You know, but go ahead.
How you feel about this then? Because I thought about this. What if we try to get both Simmons and Keith CJ, and we trade some of the young guys? Because let me tell you something. I wouldn't mind trying to trade some of these young guys on defense, like a Jerry Kirby Joseph.
Mm.
And I like Kirby, man. You just said that. I just saw you talking about CJ about his size.
Right.
Kirby, to me, he is not no free safety, bro. I think he's like a cornerback, bro. He's too light in the butt for me. And I think, especially on the open field tackling, like I'd be like, okay, he kind of like, you know, he's a good player, but you know what I'm saying. But when it comes to free safety, you gotta learn. You have to tackle. You know what I'm saying. You have to be able to tackle. You know what I'm saying. Not barely tackle a guy.
You know,
what I'm saying?
Kirby looks small, but the dude's 6'1", 200 pounds. He looks small.
Oh, wow.
I don't know why he looks so small. I don't know if it's just because he's got extremely long arms. He's got 33, 34-inch arms and gigantic 10-inch hands. I think that's what makes him look a little bit smaller is he's just really long. But yeah, he's bigger. He's bigger than what you might think. But I hear you though. I mean, yeah, if you could trade away a Kirby Joseph, you know, if he's garnering some attention in the market, and you could actually get a good deal for him, maybe that, you know, second or no, he wouldn't get a second, probably a third, a fourth, or a fifth, a third at best, probably a fourth or a fifth round pick. And, you know, you move off of him. You better have a really good reason because I think that he's got some good chemistry. But if you were to bring in a guy like, you know, like you said, CJ and a Simmons or something, you know, then yeah, I think you got something. But for me, for the cornerbacks, though, outside of the safeties, you were saying that you really didn't want to bring in a corner, you know, because of the whole Sutton thing. My deal is this. We are so thin. We have Sutton, and we just were told that Chase Lucas is not going to be tendered. So we have Sutton.
Yeah.
That's it. We have Sutton. So we need 5 or 6 more DBs to make the roster this year. 5 or 6. Last year, we had 11 DBs on the 53-man roster, or 10. And I want to say 6 or 5 of them, 5 or 6 of them were corners, 5 or 6 were safeties. So you need to bring in an Awuzie and a Fuller that you could probably get, you know, a 2 for $15 million a year. And then you're going to have to fill 1 in the draft and 2 more, you know, lighter, you know, mid-tier, you know, third-tier kind of guys for backups. We need some starting quality on both sides of the ball and address the pass rush. And I think that we'll be able to get it all done. I do. I just think like yourself, you're thinking, oh, we're going to go all in on a corner and we're not going to get anything for the defensive front. And I don't think that Brad's going to do that. I think that he's going to find some complementary pieces. I really do. And I think that's what it's all about too. You complement the rest of the defense and they all work together. You know, you'll have a better end product when it's all said and done, you know?
Yeah, I feel you. And I make one more point, and I know people were trying to get in. I want to hear your input on this. I think Jonah Jackson, bro, some telling me he might stay only because if he think he's going to, I don't believe a team's going to pay him $12 million, bro. You know, and not just because, you know, he's very talented, but he hasn't proved he could stay on the field yet. You know, so especially this season. But, you know, I think his value went down, you know what I'm saying, this season a little bit. You know, I think he's $5 million at best. You know, I think, you know, his best bet is to stay. You know, not just for us, but for him moving forward. You know, hey, take this $5 million, you know, or 3 to 5, whatever, how they gonna do it, and just stay. You know what I'm saying? I feel like it'll be better for him moving forward.
So there was an article that came out by, I think it was Pride of Detroit, and they were saying that his market value is more like a 3-year, $24 million deal. if I remember correctly. So about 8 million, 9 million a year, something like that. And
Okay.
I would say that that's pretty darn accurate. I guess I don't see him being a $10 million or more a year guy, but that's where I think
Absolutely
that
not.
if you know, if him and the agent and the Lions were that far apart, I can't imagine that it was a number that was less than 10 million. Because if it was
Okay.
if it was,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? If it was 8 or 9 million, I think they would have been like, okay, cool, get it done.
Right.
But if it was,
Right.
I mean, not even close is what the report was. They weren't even close at all. To me, that sounds like 10 million or more. And Brad is just not going to do that. He could get somebody else on the free agency market that's probably better.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
I don't know. We'll see. I hate to see this offensive line break up, but
Yeah, me too.
desperate
Me too.
times call for desperate
yeah.
measures.
Right. Hey, gotta do what we gotta do, my brother. But,
Yeah, that's
hey,
right.
man, I appreciate y'all. Hey, I see y'all in the comments, you know, clowning about the Kirby Joseph. I love Kirby, but I'm just saying, man, like, you know, if I could get somebody better, you know, I'll trade him. Shoot. But,
It's a business. It's a business,
but,
right?
right, business. Yeah, man, keep doing your thing, man. Hey, man, I want to request real quick.
Okay.
You know, I would love one day. I don't know. I ain't got to rush. Love one day, possibly be a guest on the show. Maybe I could really talk in depth. You know what I'm saying, about the Lions. I don't know when, but I would love to do that one day.
Yeah,
You know
yeah. Do me a favor.
Sometime.
Do you have my email? It's in the description, and it's in the bio of the YouTube and all that. Just send me an email so I have your email and I can set it up and I'll send you a link.
Sure, man. For
We'll,
sure.
we'll
I
get it done.
do that, brother.
All right, man. Do it. Do it to it.
All right, brother. Well, we'll make it happen soon. Thank you, man.
Sounds good, man. All right. You have a good night.
Too, man.
We'll see ya.
Yeah.
Sports Talk with Rob, man. Always coming with some correctness and some good ideas. Strong, passionate individual. And I love his takes too. You know, I think that, yeah, I've been really hard on Cam Sutton only because I seen what the Pittsburgh Steelers did in his last season. And that's why I think that cornerback is such a high priority. And with a lot of the reports saying that it's kind of the same priority for the Lions to target corner, I guess there's one thing we always have to remember, and that's this is smoke screen season. It is like a national holiday in the NFL. It is smoke screen season. I mean, someone needs to make an official banner or flag or something, because that's what it is. It's a bunch of deception and misleading, conversations going around everywhere. It's weird how the NFL works, but I can't say that I'm surprised. I mean, there's too much money at stake here for these teams. There's too much going on any given day throughout the entire year. It's like there's no break in the NFL. They're just printing money every day, and that's why they have to be some of the best chess players in the world, because that's what they're doing every day. Is they're moving their pawns into position, and they're going to strike when you least see it coming. Some very smart individuals that run these teams. Donovan Amos says Tim Twentyman smoke screens a lot. You know, I said this the other day that I think it was with Derek. We were on in the morning show and he brought up the top 10 or something like that Tim Twentyman put out. And I was kind of laughing about it because I said, you know, Tim, like, he doesn't get a whole lot right when he puts all of this stuff out. And he's super close to the Lions, obviously. So you would think that he would get a lot more right because you're right there. And like you're getting all of that firsthand information before anybody else. But there's a reason why he doesn't get anything right. If Tim Twentyman put everything out, and this is just my opinion, I don't know this for fact, but if he just put everything out that he knew, well, the Lions wouldn't be chess players. Brad Holmes wouldn't be able to do Brad Holmes things. And I really don't think that Brad Holmes is going to tell Tim everything that's going on either. But to that point, I feel like he doesn't he's not going to put out all the information that he knows because he still has to protect, you know, the employer, and that's the Detroit Lions. You know, he did put a few in his list. I think he had Robert Hunt in there, which has been one of mine that I've been talking about for a few weeks. I think he had a Woozy in there, which I started talking about a Woozy back in mid-February. Who else did he have in there? I think he had Daniil Hunter in there too. I don't know. But anyway, let me see what everyone's saying in the chat here. Justin is not better than Kirby, though. You talk about Justin Simmons? Justin Simmons is like one of the best in the NFL. He's got 30 interceptions in the last 8 seasons, more than any other DB in the league. Super available too. He went over 3,300 snaps in a row. Never missed a defensive snap. Incredible ability on the field. Let's see here. Demi got 3-on-3 says, I will say that Kirby needs to track the ball better this season because it felt like he had motivation to pick Rodgers off, but kind of took a step back from being in the area to get a pick. Didn't Kirby end up with 3 picks this season? I thought he did. But they do need to track the ball better. They do need to see. The problem is they're playing from behind. They're constantly with their backs turned to the quarterback. That's the problem. Our safeties need to be playing from the front. They need to keep everything in front of them. And if they can do that, if they can keep them in front, then that means that our cornerbacks can play man press or man to man. And then the safeties can do their job. And I think that once that link kind of gets broken, and you know, our corners can't cover and they can't run man, then the whole system is screwed and everyone's kind of playing from behind. And if you guys go back to some of the shows that I did, you know, pregame, you always heard me talking about chest to the quarterback. And that's because I always felt like you always needed to have one of the guys in the backfield, you know, whether you're in the nickel or the dime or whatever you were in, you know, too high, deep zone, doesn't matter. Someone's got to have their chest to the quarterback. If everyone's turned facing the other direction, that quarterback's going to do whatever he wants. Whether it's run, escape out of the pocket, or just pick you apart. And that's kind of what happened to us all season long. Turn off these notifications here. We were getting picked apart everywhere. And I think that that's a product of not having man press corners. And right now, I don't think that Cam Sutton's a man press corner. And I think this defense depends on it. Let's see here. Jared Semmelbauer at Will Barty 24 shirts. I don't know what that is. What's that mean? Peter Van Larhoven. Will, what do you think of a trade back with Carolina 29 and 165 for 33 and 102? This would give us the first pick in 2 days, in days 2 and 3. I think that they would need to throw a sweetener in with that. So I like where your head's at, though. So I think one of the scenarios that they could be a potential for the Lions is that they're looking to make a trade just like your scenario there to move up like 20 picks. And some of the trade scenarios that I've done in my mock drafts is, you know, the Lions move from 29 to let's say 36 or something, but they you know, get rid of 165 and move, you know, up to 130 or whatever. Or I can't remember what our 4th pick is, what number it is, but they get rid of the 4th pick to move up, you know, 20 picks so that you get basically 5 picks inside the top 100 instead of 4. And the biggest thing for me is they need to find a pick between 29 and 61. The meat of this draft, and I called it last year, the meat of this draft is 35 to 50. And 50 might be a little high. It could be 35 to 45 by the time I'm done looking at it, or 30 to 45. And what I mean by that is that's the meat of this draft, to be able to grab two really good players that could be impact players. And it doesn't have to be, an offensive threat or a defensive end. It could be a defensive tackle, defensive end. It could be not a running back, a wide receiver, a tight end. It doesn't matter. Just impact players that we can plug in and that can play. I will not leave out the chance that Brad Holmes is probably going to take a wide receiver, could take a tight end if he doesn't take a wide receiver. I would love to see him take a tight end, but he just locked up, brought back Zielstra and Wright. And don't rest your hat on those contracts either. Like you tender Brock Wright does not mean that he's on this team. You bring back Zielstra does not mean he's on this team. That just means you're getting your camp assembled. And these guys have got to come back and produce. Brock Wright is valued at like $4 million a year, $5 million a year, something like that. That's way too much to pay. If you want to pay $4 or $5 million a season, you might as well take a tight end in the second round. Someone that's young, like the Theo Johnson that I think, has proven himself. And there's a reason why I did that video, because I expected him to move up. And he's proven himself, after the combine, that he's going to be a force at the next level. And I expect Brad Holmes to make some moves like that. I do. I do not expect him to do defense, 4 straight shots in a row. So Jared says, the question is, before we let CJGJ go, we need to feel that we have upgrade, better the team, listen to Brad Holmes when he interviews. So, I mean, we know that CJ Gardner is obviously a free agent. Unless the Lions and him work out a deal between now and next week, Wednesday, he's a free agent. Come Wednesday at noon or 4 p.m., whenever it starts. And he can go to any team he wants. That's kind of the deal, unless you're an exclusive rights free agent, restricted free agent. The Lions don't have any say in what these guys do. And that's the deal with CJ Gardner. I just feel that something would have been done by now. And I feel like, Brad Holmes was waiting to see what was going to happen with these safeties before he did anything. And that's the only reason why I'm saying, you don't bring him back, is because there's too many really good options. And I put it in the chat. So Xavier McKinney is 24 years old. So, you get that guy locked up on a good deal, and you've got a really good safety for a long time. Someone that can play at a very high level. And I do like, I see some of your comments in here, like a loudmouth, Philly can have him back. He's gone. Look, I get it. Not everybody loves the way that he speaks, but some of the players do. And it does help invoke some emotion on the team. And sometimes you do need a really solid vocal leader on the defense. When you guys are struggling, you need someone to pick you up. You need someone to rile you up. You need a rah-rah guy. Sometimes you don't have a rah-rah coach. You don't have a rah-rah defensive coordinator, but you might have that one player that can do that can get, everybody amped up and ready to go out. So yeah, I do believe that there is a value for a quote unquote loudmouth. I think CJ Gardner does it because, he's a high end athlete and normally he backs his stuff up. This last year he couldn't. He struggled, on the field after his injury. He struggled on the field before his injury. And that was just from my eyes seeing that. I'm sure other people have different takes. Yeah, Justin G says, but Will has a point on the market value. I think that the market, like I said, you look at it like it's a stock market. You've got a flood of safeties. Price just went down. Maybe they'll just have to tell CJ Gardner, sorry, Bob, price is wrong. It's time to move on. And we're going to find somebody younger, faster, bigger, maybe cheaper, maybe not, but younger, faster, and better. Someone that can stay on the field. Demigod 313 says the only reason the player love it because they're too scared to talk trash to themselves. Dan Campbell is not vocal than any player on the team besides Sewell and CJ Gardner. Dan Campbell is pretty darn vocal, man. I don't know how many practices you've been to, but yeah, we'll let this one slide, Jeremiah. I don't know how many practices you've been to, but I'll tell you what, Dan Campbell is ruthless out there. No nonsense, gets them going, all about energy, good energy. But yeah, he's vocal, man. I love it. Oh, I see. I got you. Yeah, the only reason why I say that, Jeremiah, is because I have sponsors. And speaking of sponsors, do yourself a favor and check out sportspider.com. If you guys are looking to get all of your sports in one place, check out sportspider.com. Link is in the description. It's sport, S-P-Y-D-E-R. That's SPORTSPYDER.com. You guys can organize all of your sports, all of your teams in one thread. You sign up, no credit card needed. It's free. And no, they're not going to send you a bunch of spam and, hate mail or whatever at 3:00 in the morning. Sign up, get all your sports at sportspider.com. You will love it. I promise you, it changed my life. In doing this, it helps me organize, everything that I need to see daily. Now I just need to figure out how to do that with all of the social medias. I said it a while ago. If somebody could create one social media that had all of the social medias in it, they'd be a billionaire within a year. I don't know how it's possible. It's got to be possible, though. Justin G says that JJ re-signing with the Bears stinks. Yep. But hey, back in mid-February, what did I say? $19 million a year. He'll be tagged. I said, if that doesn't happen, you got to pluck them away. But if it does happen, you're SOL. What are you going to do? Too good of a talent for the Bears to let go. But here's the thing that I'm going to throw out there about the Bears. They are spending too much money, way too much money on these high profile players. And it's going to bite them. At some point, and now they're going to be starting over with a new quarterback. So you're going to have all of these high profile defensive players with a new quarterback. You better hope that this quarterback comes in and takes the world by storm like CJ Stroud did this last season. Because if he doesn't, and if he takes even 3 years to develop, all of those players you just signed are gone. You're not going to be able to afford them. I do not trust, which is a good thing, what Ryan Poles is trying to put together. When you look at it, it's exactly what you don't do. Like, you don't go out and spend that kind of money that quickly without settling your trenches first. And Brad Holmes did it right, and he's going to continue to do it right. He's always paid attention to the trenches, at least a little bit. We'll see what happens. The one thing that he hasn't done, though, he has not taken a corner in the first round. I don't expect that to change this year. As long as we don't trade out anyway. If we do keep pick 29, I think that old Kool-Aid McKinstry will have a chance to be a Detroit Lion. Now, I found this shirt the other day, and I thought, man, the parody with Kool-Aid becoming a Detroit Lion is there. Last year, it was Jack Campbell, Dan Campbell. This year, it's, hey, we do nothing but drink the Kool-Aid. Why don't we bring Kool-Aid in? Man, I just wish his last name was Kool-Aid on the back of his jersey. That'd be insane. All right, so what are we talking about here? Demigod, okay, so what's so special about this Jalen Reeves guy? He goes from being trash on defense to being released again from another team to being the highest paid special team player to president. Yeah, I don't know. Someone asked me earlier, did would you say, did Will Harris have pictures on somebody, holding out ransom and blackmail on somebody because he's got pictures on someone? I thought that was hilarious. Maybe Jalen Reeves maybe got the same stuff. I don't know. Yeah, interesting. But you know what? It's well deserved if he deserves it, which I'm sure he does. He actually is a pretty good dude, off the field. We can't judge these guys just by, or evaluate these guys just by what they don't do on the field. Pretty good human beings, man. there's a lot of really, really intelligent, generous guys and ladies that, are part of the NFL that do a lot for the communities. And Jalen Reeves-Maven obviously is one of them. So I wish him nothing but the best. I'm not high on the signing, but I just hope that it works out. I hope that he has a great season. Let's see here. Jared says MCDC is a leader. He is not embarrassing, just his coaching learning curve at moments. Get a kicker is all I can say. I grew up with Steady Eddie, then Jason Hanson, and then Matt Prater. Wow. That's like 40 years of kickers that we never had to worry. 40 years. I think Eddie Murray was the first kicker when I was 4 years old that was on the team. Eddie. Yep. Steady Eddie. 1984. Someone needs to draft Williams and have him sit as a backup. What? I wouldn't be surprised if Williams goes number 2, or if, hey, did I dare say that the Bears give up the first pick and try to trade down to 2 or 3 or something crazy and then just take the best quarterback that's there and grab more picks? I mean, quite honestly, with all the work that I put into looking into the quarterbacks and how there's only really been 2 quarterbacks like in the last 7 years that have been worth a first round pick, that have actually done anything, like CJ Stroud, the most recent. And then before him, you had Patrick Mahomes. Lamar Jackson was the only other one that went to the playoffs in his first year and lost. And then I think it was Joe Burrow that went to the playoffs in his second year and lost. So that's it. I mean, out of all the first round quarterbacks that have been taken, over 30 quarterbacks, 35 now since 2016, and you've only had like 4 that have done anything, you're better off taking one at pick 3 or pick 4 and just rolling the dice. Tracy says, I said, what if they don't take Williams? Then what? I don't know. Well, they weren't going to have Justin because they're trying to move him. I think they'll take Jaden Daniels. I think Jaden Daniels is going to be the better quarterback anyway. Let's see here. Donovan Amos. I don't think that we should sign Jonathan Greenard. His stats are padded because he has a good defense line around him. The Texans fans don't even want him back. I don't know. I haven't looked into Greenard a whole lot, but he's a pretty solid player. Here, I'll throw this at you. And that's only because I've done the research on it and I know this. Here, and I don't mean to jump on Aiden, but Aiden Hutchinson, when he was at Michigan, he had an incredible defense around him, right? Incredible defense. So, of course, he had an amazing season because every offense had to worry about 11 guys, not just 2 or 3. So to your point about Greenard, with the Texans, every team had to worry about multiple players. So maybe Greenard got, not as much attention and was able to have a little bit easier time doing what he does. So whenever you have an extremely good cast around you, it can artificially pump up your numbers. And when you are then pulled out and put on a team that is maybe not so good, that's when, the true you starts to shine. Like, are you able to beat your one-on-ones? Can you beat double teams like you were before? Or, can you get to the quarterback and not just the pressure? And the one thing I'm going to say on the pressures and the double teams, I know a lot of people say that like Aiden's double teamed a lot. The only thing that I'll ask you to do is just to go watch some of the tape again, some of the games, rewatch it. If he's chipped, off his zone blocking scheme, that is not a double team. And a chip is just a tight end or a pulling guard or, a running back making second contact, with a defensive end or a defensive tackle and then releasing upfield or whatever, right? That's not a double team. A double team is when 2, a tackle and a guard or a guard and a center, they come at you to make contact together. That's a double team. They'll stay engaged until one has to break away, to pick up somebody else. But that's a double team. And the reason why there's so many double teams being credited to players like Aiden is because of these new next gen stats. They have chips in the shoulder pads, so they can detect, how close you are in proximity to other players. And it's counting artificial double teams. I know it for a fact. Clearly, they're not going to say that. They're not going to say that they have flaws in their system, but I've watched the games and then I've looked at their stats afterwards, and it's like, no, not even close. So that's why, with some stats, like you can't believe in everything. And then on the flip side, what I would say is you've got some players that are supposedly double teamed all the time, like Myles Garrett, who was able to win and able to, win his reps and get to the quarterback. So it does go both ways. I think that, some of those stats for Myles Garrett are pretty flawed too. Brian Welsh says Van Ginkel exudes everything the Lions are about. And who had Van Ginkel pegged to the Detroit Lions as a possibility? Derek. Derek is the one that brought that dude to light, and he was right, man. I mean, he's Alex Anzalone number 2. I think that he's been slated to get about $8 million a year, and I think that that's about $3-4 million a year more than I think what the Lions are going to want to pay. All right, so I'm going to run through. It's the 10 o'clock hour. We'll be wrapping it up here soon. That has a quick 2 hours. But I just want to run through a couple of guys that are still on my list to get out of free agency. Now, I don't know how many times I'll be on this weekend. I'll definitely be on Sunday. But here we go. Christian Wilkins. Love to have him as our new defensive tackle. I think that it's the path to the quarterback is always through the center of the defense. You break that link in the chain, the rest of the defense can work around it. But you got to break the middle first. It's just the way it works. Danielle Hunter, I mean, of course, it would be a great luxury pick to have on this team, but I think that you're going to be able to pick up, a Christian Wilkins who's been pretty darn dominant through the center of a defense. A little bit less expensive than a Danielle Hunter, probably by, $5 to $7 million less per season. And that $5 or $7 million is going to get you AJ Epinesa. So Christian Wilkins, AJ Epinesa, I would love to see that pair come to Detroit Lions. I think that it would be absolutely unstoppable to have an Aiden Hutchinson and AJ Epinesa and a Wilkins and an Aleem McNeil. Who's going to stop that? I don't think that anybody's going to have a chance. On the back end, yeah, I'm still high on Kendall Fuller. I think that, if you were to pair up a Kendall Fuller and an Awuzie, and you grab them both for less than $15 million a year, now you have settled 4 positions, 4 players for an average of $10 million per player. Much better deal than signing a $25 million, $28 million defensive end. What are you going to be able to do with that extra $12 or $13 million? You're only going to be able to get 1, maybe 2 more players, maybe. So you're losing out on a player. I would rather grab 4 for the price of 2 that are all pretty good players. Bryce Huff. So he's another one that, look, if you can't bring in, a Danielle Hunter and it just doesn't make sense, too expensive. You could probably grab a Bryce Huff and an AJ Epinesa. Again, it's that 2 for deal. You're getting 2 for, probably 18 million a season. And Bryce Huff had 10.5 sacks last season or something crazy. And AJ Epinesa had 6.5, combined, with what Aiden is able to produce, you're almost doubling or, 2.5 times the amount of sack production by bringing in those 2 players. And then you have to have, the offense worried about 3 guys versus 2. There's no reason why you couldn't have all 3 on the field at once. I'm sure that AJ Epinesa can play inside out, and so could Bryce Huff. For a safety, again, so if we were to bring in a safety to have some good veteran leadership, I do like the ability of Simmons being a little bit older. But again, and Xavier McKinney, 24 years old, I think that he's probably going to be high on Brad Holmes' list to at least feel out. But again, Brad Holmes has to know these guys. I have not looked at the roster that I put together to see if he's ever met with Brad Holmes in the past. And there's that link between, the free agents that have come to Detroit and the free agents, the pre-draft visits that have met with Brad Holmes. There is a link there. Just about every single free agent that has come to Detroit has known Brad Holmes, met Brad Holmes in the past, or been a player for the Rams. So Steven Nelson is still high on my list for a cornerback replacement. Kendall Fuller, Steven Nelson, Awuzie. I think all three of those guys are excellent options to come in. Darius Williams, I mentioned the other day. I know he's on the shorter end. If he has a very long wingspan, it makes sense. I do not know his wingspan at this point. But he's still a dog, man, even at 5'9". And I know we have a slot corner, it's kind of a nickel safety in Brian Branch. But that doesn't mean, again, if you can't bring this guy in on a good contract, talent is talent is talent. And we're missing a bunch of guys. Someone's got to take over for what Chase Lucas was doing. Chase Lucas was still getting into games. And we have to have depth. If you can bring in all of these guys and say, look, we're going for a Super Bowl. We need everybody to work together. We need everyone to take this kind of pay, but this is what we want to build. I don't know who would want to turn that down. And maybe that's just the fan in me, but I would just say, look, call all these guys and get them on a conference call. This is what we want to do. We want all of you guys to work together. Nobody is the number one. You guys will earn that in camp, battle it out, stay healthy. Let's go win a Lombardi. Everyone take a cheap 1-year deal. Let's go get it. But easier said than done. This is a business. They've got to worry about their families too. Interesting one coming out of the Browns. Zadarius Smith. He was traded from the Vikings to the Browns this past offseason on a revised contract, converting it to a 1-year deal for $11.6 million. He outplayed that $11.6 million big time. Zadarius Smith had an excellent season last year. So there's another edge option. With Zadarius Smith, Bryce Huff, and AJ Epinesa. These are all guys in that second tier. And Zadarius Smith is almost, to that first tier kind of guy. He's just another great option for the Lions to be looking at. And he knows the NFC North. Let's see here. Who else did I have? I already talked about Xavier McKinney. Look, his grades, across the board are pretty darn good. Only allowed 7 yards per target, which ranked in the top 25 among all safeties, and 17 combined interceptions and forced incompletions put him in the top 20. So, the guy's a top 20 safety in the league. There's no reason why you wouldn't want to bring him into this defense. Who's my pick first, Jeremiah? Man, who is my pick first? I've got to stick with corner. I feel like there's nobody there. We don't have anybody. So you're going to have to lock up the most deficient area of the team first. And the most deficient is corner or DB, right? That's the most deficient on this team. And then it's defensive front is the second most deficient. No, actually, I'll take that back. I would say it's corner. Depending on what we do in free agency, it's offensive line, then defensive line. So those are your three buckets, DB, offensive line, defensive line, that are the biggest needs on this team. I don't expect Brad Holmes to really take anything else other than that in the very beginning of this throughout free agency. And maybe even in the draft, those might be the first three positions that he targets. If he gets a couple of luxury picks in there for a wide receiver or a tight end, if he does, really well in free agency, we might see more luxury picks being taken. but I just don't know if that's the Brad Holmes way, because I think he's shown us time and time again that he's not worried about the glitz and the glam. He's more worried about guys that want to play football. Nearing the bottom of my list is safety Justin Blackmon. Again, I think that he's somebody that can come in and still make, big time improvement on this team and help out these safeties and help them learn a little bit about the game. Someone was mentioning earlier, about Kirby Joseph maybe not being the best, maybe a potential trade target or something like that. I don't think that we would trade him, but I still think that he has a lot to learn about this game. He's not as polished, as some of the other guys in the league. But that I don't think that the ship has sailed on him yet either. I think that there's plenty of opportunity for Kirby Joseph in the NFL as long as he continues to get better at his craft. So that's it. Those are some of my top free agents on my watch list right now. And then I've already spoken about my top free agents in-house, and I'll quickly go over those. The guys that can go: Will Harris, Charles Harris, Vaitai, Jonah Jackson, and sadly, CJ Gardner-Johnson. The guys that I expect to stay or at least get some sort of a qualifying offer: James Houston, Benito Jones, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Graham Glasgow, with Josh Reynolds kind of being the one that hinges for me on whether he stays. So, look, you guys have been great. I appreciate you guys all for joining in tonight. We had an amazing crowd. I know at one point there was like 120 some odd people in here. Right now we're about 90 strong, and 625 views already through 2 hours. That's an incredible show tonight. Thank you to my moderators tonight for helping. If there's been any issues, you guys can always let me know offline, but I didn't see anything. I think everyone's been pretty well behaved and enjoying the content and participating. I feel like I didn't do a great job getting to everybody's questions tonight because you guys are just lighting it up. It's just going too fast. I almost got to slow it down. So if there's anything that I missed, feel free to email me, info@rockdownpodcastnetwork.com. And we'll try to fit it into the next show on Sunday at 8:00. So if you notice the time is changing a little bit, I'm going to go at 8 instead of 8:30 and try to get in 2 hours versus 1 hour and see how long we can do it. So, all right, y'all, that's it for Rock Down Detroit Lions tonight. And let's get it done. If you have any questions, just email it. I see Jared Semmelbauer says doing homework Friday for me. There you go. All right. You guys are awesome. We'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.